Hi, it's Laurie at Sew Right Sewing Machines, and today we're going to discuss how to achieve a 1/4 inch seam, or perhaps even a scant 1/4 inch seam using a device here that you see on this table, or a foot that you can purchase for your sewing machine. Okay, so let's start out with the basics. Let's start out with ways you can achieve it without having to buy a new accessory foot. Some of the machines that you might find on the market or you may have at home may come with one, but some of the older machines and some of the more basic models do not. So let's take a look at the machine itself and see how we can do it without having you buy a new presser foot. So let's look at the machine itself. What you're going to find is a number of different machine manufacturers will have different types of stitch plates for their machine. So I'm looking at the Pacesetter Today or Brother machine. And if you look carefully, engraved in the plastic part of the machine is the 1/4 inch line. Given that this machine, when it boots up, is in left needle position, I'm not going to change it to center needle position, but have it remain in left needle, because the stitch plate is designed to have that lay right there with that needle in left needle position, and there is a 1/4 inch line. I can measure it to ensure that I'm discussing it in the right way, and that if I lay my ruler right here and where the needle is, you'll see that this is a 1/4 inch right there. All right. Other machines boot up with the needle in center needle position, and then you'll have your 1/4 inch lines on this side here on the bed of your machine. Okay, so it's very faint, and the machine manufacturer is giving you a lot of credit for being able to see well. So let's say that you don't have great lighting on your machine. There's other ways that we can then mark the surface of the bed temporarily to ensure that you get a straight stitch. One basic way to do it is with tape. So what I could do is I could figure out where my needle position is, measure out a 1/4 inch, and then lay this on the bed of the machine as such, just like that. I would recommend laying it all the way down part of the accessory tray bed, so that way when you guide your fabric, you have a direction, you don't go askew when you're feeding it under the needle onto the feed dogs. Apparently with this particular machine, I'm finding that given in that center needle position, this normal accessory zipper foot does quite nicely in 1/4 inch, and that when I put the foot down, it appears that that's going to be a 1/4 inch. So let's take a look. And it looks pretty good, actually. So if I use the edge of my foot right here, put it in center needle position, using just our normal accessory foot, I am getting a 1/4 inch on this particular model. Okay, so that is one option. Another option is, rather than taping your machine, because let's say you're not a great taper and things go askew and it becomes crooked, we have these guys, which have a little vinyl base, so they're rather sticky. So you can line it up against your machine like that, and they'll stay in place. And you have the a template created for it. What you're going to find on the template that comes with this particular seam positioning accessory is that there are little holes that are pierced through this template. And based on the type of seam allowance you'd like, you're going to put your needle in that hole and then use these guys to line it up. On the back side of them is a sticky piece. I'm not going to open that up yet, but what's nice about the sticky piece is it's vinyl, so you can reposition it time and again on the bed of your machine. Even if you don't, there's another alternative where if you have a steel plate or a plastic plate, this is going to adhere no matter what type of sewing surface your sewing machine bed has, okay? So hypothetically, let's line it up at the 1/4 inch, since we're talking about 1/4 inch today. So I'm moving the template, putting it under there where my needle is. I could do a needle up down to make sure it's accurately in place. You're going to see that this is the 1/4 inch. I'm going to put this vinyl piece like this up against the side. It gives a good, generous rise here, so that way your fabric can't slip underneath. You could, if you want, you could lie this up here as well, and then you get a long line. Or say that you're positioning whatever your project is to the other side of your machine. We could torque this guy around, this could be the 1/4 inch on this side, and then I can always lie the foot over here. So it's pretty versatile. Another way is, say that you have a short piece and you don't want this whole bed interfering with it, you can always lay the piece this way. So there's multi-positions in terms of using this thing. And it's made by Nancy Zieman's company. So usually it's well tested and it's a great tool to have. A more traditional option would be if you have a metal stitch plate, you can use this magnetic seam guide. It's already attracting to the plate, which is a good sign. Again, you've got this rise on the side that you can butt your fabric up against so it doesn't shift under or move, and that way you can also get an accurate seam allowance as well. We were talking about tape. We also have a tape. This tape, because it's just Scotch tape, a really nice one, you have vinyl strips, which are more easily repositionable and cleanly are removed from your machine. These sewing edge guides. Same principle, low tech, but a way that you can get your 1/4 inch seam allowance. So these are some of the alternatives using these tools and not using an accessory foot to get that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Since I'm currently working on the Brother PS700, the Pacesetter 700, I'm going to remove the zigzag foot off of it now and just do a slight comparison between the 2 feet and why I might want to change. We've got a wider stitch width here. We've got a wider profile on this foot. And then we got a lot of room here. When I want to do a seam allowance with a 1/4 inch, I want some more accurate measurement without maybe having to mark up a machine. So I've got a smaller profile on this foot. I've got, you can see this tiny hole, that's where your needle position is going to be. And I also have this cutout or a flange so that my fabric can glide along the side of that 1/4 inch to ensure that it's matching up, like that ridge we had on those ones that we marked up the machine bed with. So I'm going to install this foot. And with the Brother, I just put it underneath and put the take-up lever up and down until it snaps in place. Okay. Also, with a machine like this, where oftentimes when it boots up, it's in left needle position, I have to make sure that my needle is in center needle, or else I'm going to break something on this machine, either jar the machine or damage the foot, all those ugly things we don't want to happen. So basically, as you can see here, I'm lining up the fabric along the edge of the flange. Now, a lot of quilters express pros and cons with having the flange. Oftentimes say that you're doing a 1/4 inch seam in the middle of your quilt for some reason, top stitching or whatever. The flange can get in the way or get stuck in a seam. But oftentimes you're going to be using the flange to create piecing along the edge. So this is the usual way you're going to be using the foot. And here we go. So you can see how nice that is. Just rides along the edge and I'm just guiding it in. And I don't have to look at my bed. I can look at where I'm going. Okay? That way I can focus on what's important. When I am pushing or feeding I should say, the fabric through the machine, I am just doing a gentle assist. I'm just keeping the fabric parallel to the bed of the machine and just guiding it in place. I'm not shoving, I'm not pushing, I'm letting the feed dogs take over, and I am just guiding it. Okay? Just like that. So here we go. We use the flange, and let's see how accurate it is. That's pretty good. You see my seam is right there. Now let's say that you want it to be a scant 1/4 inch. Say you're saying my fabric's thick. When I press it, there's a little bit less of a seam allowance than I want or too much of one. I can move my needle position ever so slightly because the hole is large enough to give me a little bit of control moving my needle left or right. Okay? So I might move my needle right one little nudge. So I am thinking it is right here. And you saw my needle just shift once over.
Can you do that again?
Sure. Okay, that moved a hair. So we could do a comparison. Let me start near where I had the other seam allowance just to see if I can see the scantness and how scant that is when we talk about scant. Again, I'm just guiding it, having the fabric go against that flange. Don't be abusive to the flange because then it might go out of position. But here you can see the difference of that little scant 1/4 inch and how it might affect the piecing of your quilt. You can't, in the middle of piecing, change your mind and go from one seam allowance to the next because pieces won't match up. You should make that determination before you begin your project. So a question may be, what options do you have if you don't own a brother or a baby lock machine? So I'm going to start with Bernina. We have a few types of 1/4 inch feet available. The ones I have here all have D for dual feed. These same feet are made available in other formats. C feet for coded so your machine can read it, or just plain 37, 57, or 97, okay? Because each of the feet function the same way. It's just kind of how the machine recognizes it. So 37D, let's open that guy up, is the simplest. Because what you're going to see here is there's no flange. There's just a nice opening. Again, you can move your needle position a little bit to get the scant 1/4 inch. And you're going to lay the fabric along the edge here. Right along the edge here to achieve that 1/4 inch. Some people like that flexibility of not having that flange in the way to get their 1/4 inch and just move their needle position. So we have this as an option. The 57D is different in that I believe this has a flange. So if you look at that, you'll see it's the same cutout as that 37, except there's a little flange on the side here to help you guide your fabric in the machine. The opening is generous enough, just so slightly, so that you can move your needle position right or left, one nudge, to get your scant or generous 1/4 inch. Okay? Then finally, we have the foot called the 97. And why that's different is that it doesn't have a flange. As you can see, the cutout's somewhat the same. But what they have is they've created for the stitch plate on the bed of the machine a system like this. So that you can screw in, measure your 1/4 inch on your bed of your machine, screw it in place so it can't move, which has its advantages because the flange could torque or flex out over time. You've got this here, and that way you can just ride your fabric along the edge right here, and that wall will stop it from moving anywhere but where you want that 1/4 inch. So these are the Bernina feet. One other brand that I'm going to focus on today is Hooks-Van Viking, and they have 1/4 inch feet as well. They've developed on their higher end models a dual feed system. So there is a cutout on the back to engage the dual feed on some of the models, and some of them don't have it, which is fine if you don't have a machine that has dual feed. But I'm going to pop these guys open so you can take a look at the differences. So you can tell from the manufacturer that the concept's the same, it's just how they're designed is a little bit different. They've got little directions in terms of how to utilize the feet with most manufacturers. So let's take a look at this guy first. This guy is metal. And there's a lot of integrity with metal in that you don't have to worry about it breaking or anything like that. So this foot is designed with a metal component. What is nice here is you're seeing this little narrow area and then you see this wide area. This is to help keep your fabric structured and sturdy back here as it's feeding in, but you're going to be using this edge as your 1/4 inch seam allowance right there. Okay? So we've got that. This also comes in clear, so if you want to see your fabric underneath, you can take a peek and have some more control that way. And again, I should point out that the hole is a little wider so that you can get your scant or generous 1/4 inch right there. You can move your needle position probably one position right or left. Okay, again, instructions. Okay, this is two things. One is that it's clear, and this one, if I turn it, has the flange. The markings on this might be clear to some people, and you can also see the fabric underneath. You can see my palm underneath. Again, there's that hole that's a little generous, so you can move your needle position left or right one spot. And these are two options that Viking offers to create your 1/4 inch seam. There are a couple more that I am not showing you right now, but these are the ones that could be utilized on most Viking sewing machines. We've walked through several options as to how you can achieve your perfect 1/4 inch seam. So come stop by the store. You can talk with us to discuss your particular needs, and we can figure out a way that you can best achieve that seam allowance you're looking for. Thanks a lot, and hope to see you again soon.